All right, joining us now, one of the voices, NHL on ESPN, Bob Wischusen here with us as the Panthers fail to close out the series last night against Carolina Hurricanes. Bob, good to talk with you. Thanks for coming on the program here today. How surprised were you with last night? I mean, with the first three games, 16-4, none of the games. I mean, game three was close until the third period. How surprised were you with last night?
I wasn't surprised. It's hard to beat a team 4 times in a row. It's hard when a team knows that they lose, they're cleaning out their lockers. You win, you've got 3 more chances, or you lose, you've got 3 more chances to beat them. So I think there's a human nature element involved in sometimes, a 3-0 series lead. But to me, all that, I have to admit, all it does is delay the inevitable. And I can't imagine that the Panthers could lose this series. I don't see them losing game 5. So, yeah, not stunned that a team as good as Carolina can win a game. But if you watch the first 3 games, you see the difference between the two teams.
It really is different from, like, say, the NBA, where teams up 3-0. It's like, it's not, last night, the fourth win is always going to be the hardest one to get against a team to end their season. That's a big saying. It's not really like that in the NBA. When you're down 0-3, it kind of feels like that team packs it in. You don't get that in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No, there's something about the nature of hockey, I think, and the fact that even a mid-February game, all the stars play. They play 100 miles an hour. It's just, guys lose teeth and come back for their next shift. It's just the nature of the sport and the culture of the sport, which is why, again, I'm not surprised that you got the effort out of Carolina that you got last night. And look, I'm expecting Carolina to bring the same effort in game 5, but they brought that effort, I think, in games 1, 2, and 3. And look at Florida and look at what they're capable of. I mean, they can take your will away. They almost like snatch your spirit. I think there is an element in this series, the first 3 games of it, regardless of what happened in game 4, where if you're on the Canes, you're in the room after the game's over, and everyone in their heart of hearts is kind of looking at each other going, wow, like we can't beat these guys when they're at their best. No matter how well we play, they're that good in terms of playing playoff hockey. And so do I expect Florida to do what they do and win one of the next couple of games? Yeah. There's no way to me this series gets to a 7th game. I don't think it gets past 5.
What'd you make of the way Brind'Amour sounded after game 3? Like, he just sounded like a coach. I don't know if he sounded like a coach who thinks he might get fired, but he certainly sounded like a coach who felt defeated after that game.
How could you not? Right? I mean, look, and I get, you're right. You probably want to avoid that if you're the coach. You probably want the coach to be, holding the team together from a spirit standpoint. But I would understand why everyone, after those first 3 games and the way they went and how decisive they were, again, it's a little bit of a looking at each other with a realization of, like, we're not good enough to beat these guys. And that has to be a tough realization to accept.
This morning, the Panthers had all their guys on the ice. Reinhart was skating. Mikkola was skating. AJ Greer was skating. Does that lead us to believe that they probably sat last night because it was 3 games to none?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, right? And I think that they have, they've proven that they can play. Like, I remember talking to Paul Maurice, as the dogs go crazy with somebody.
That's all right.
I remember talking to Paul Maurice after game 1 or 2 of the first series that started the playoffs, and asking him, how hard is it to determine a lineup? And he said, look, we've got 17 forwards that can play. And at the start of the playoffs, that Noshik, Greer, Gadjevich, the 4th line that he's been using, none of those guys played to start the playoffs. He didn't use any of them. And there was an argument to be made that they were, at the end of the season, their first or second best line. And they were in terms of the metrics. So I think he also knows he has the depth that he can lean on when necessary.
What is something when you talk about the coaching and, putting lines together like that, what is something you think that the casual hockey fan doesn't understand about the difficulty the difficult job that the coach has, not just putting the lines together, but which the shifts and you guys are up next, you guys are up next, just matching up in game.
That's a great question. I mean, that's probably, like from Paul Maurice's standpoint, he probably was looking at his roster, to end the season and saying, well, like Jesper Boquist was a goal scorer for me at times this year. Do I sit him in favor of, say, a Tomas Nosek or a Gadjevich?
I mean, Sam Iskevich had 15 goals in the regular season. He's appeared in 4 playoff games.
Yeah, and the first couple, I think you saw him kind of, as you would expect maybe with a young player, taken out of his game a little bit in the playoffs, because playoff hockey for a young player, all of a sudden, things that came somewhat easy to you in January and February, now you've got like a higher rate of speed, a higher rate of physicality, and guys putting an elbow through your chest, whereas you might have had 5 feet of room back in the middle of the winter. And you could see a young guy being affected by that. Well, if you look at a Greer, a Gadjevich, a Nosek, and how they play, their style of game when they're at their best, like they're normally the guy coming at someone 100 miles an hour and eliminating that reactionary room. They're that type of player that can do what was being done to Samoskevich to the opposition. And what a luxury to have that depth of a roster and have that many guys that can fill that kind of a role for you. And you know what? The number of times we see, even after an 82-game schedule, the coaches, after one loss, juggle up line combinations or have new players draw into the lineup, and guys that have been in the lineup get healthily scratched. I mean, it goes to show you that they're even in the playoffs still kind of in the laboratory trying to figure it out.
Matthew Tkachuk wasn't very good last night, especially a couple giveaways and essentially ending the game when he gave away on the blue line right when the Panthers pulled the goal. They didn't even have a chance with the extra skater. And I think it's easy to say that Tkachuk is not healthy, but here's where I pause, Bob. It appears that Paul Maurice had no problem sitting Mikkola, sitting Greer. Okay, you need a game. We're up 3 games to none. There's never been a conversation about resting Tkachuk for a game here or there because he's kind of banged up. So I don't know. Do we believe that he's not healthy?
I don't know. Right. I mean, you have to crawl inside the player's body and brain. You'd have to be in the room where the two of them are having, kind of a heart-to-heart between the two of them. I do think that Tkachuk's style, the way he plays, is probably a little bit more capable of playing through injury, and he certainly has, than maybe a more, finesse player.
Right.
Or, he is such a blue-collar player and such an awesome agitator and such, I'm sure, like the chirpy guy on the bench that you want there with Marchand, like leading to that element of the game. He, Marchand, Brady Tkachuk, normally, if they're not the top 3, all 3 of them are in the top 5 in terms of drawing penalties taken by the opposition, right? Like having his spirit in the lineup is something you probably want as well. So hard to be in the position from the outside looking in of, Tkachuk has an injury that's worthy of sitting. Mikkola, he should have played. I don't know, right? I mean, you really would have to be in the medical room, in the office with the coach and the player and be inside the player's body to know what's real and what's not.
Bob, this is at least the second time that I remember this happening with the Panthers this postseason with this embellishment. It happened, I think it was the Tampa series where Evan Rodriguez got his face smashed into the boards and had to leave the game. He had to go to the room and he got called for an embellishment. And then last night, of course, Matthew Tkachuk looked like a pretty clear takedown to me at the same time the penalty was taken, and he gets called for an embellishment. What are you seeing there?
Again, I don't know. You're right. Over the course of the regular season, I called about 40 regular season games for ESPN, but a half a season. And I probably watched, I don't know, like 400 other games. I mean, you're constantly watching games, right, to prepare for your own. And I'm just constantly watching games. and I can probably count on one hand the number of embellishment calls that I saw in the regular season, and then all of a sudden you see them in the playoffs. So the same thing with the officials. Do they have a little bit more of their antenna up in the playoffs than they do during the regular season for that kind of thing? I guess so. But yeah, sometimes when I see a guy get absolutely clearly tripped, absolutely clearly cross-checked, and they take them both, you do wonder, like, what was the guy that was either tripped or getting cross-checked supposed to do?
Stars Oilers tonight. Do the Oilers take full control of the series?
If I had to guess, I would say yes. In each of these games that they've won, not only have they won, but they've hit multiple posts that I can remember in each game. Like they have, when they keep coming and they get to their game and they come like a freight train, to me, they're the hardest team in the NHL to stop because of the weapons that they have. So if I had to guess, I would say yes. But Dallas, I think Dallas is the Western Conference version of the Panthers. I think they're the best facsimile. They don't have, like, Rantanen's been really good. Maybe he's Sam Reinhart. But they don't really have the up and down the ice, score on the rush, incredible talent. But they are so intense, so physical, so good at rolling four lines at you. Their fourth line, right, with Steele, with Blackwell, whoever they roll in with the Oscar Beck, like they've rotated guys through that group, but like they give you quality minutes. Heiskanen gives you that tote the puck element of like a game-changing defenseman that they didn't have for the last half of the season. They're obviously different when he can play half the game, which he does. So do they have the capability to make it? I picked it to be a 7-game series at the start. Yeah, they do. But boy, the Oilers, when they get to their game, and again, Dallas is as good as Florida can be at times of making sure that really gifted team doesn't get to their game, and they dictate the style, but they get to their game, they're really hard to beat.
Would the hockey world be into a Florida-Edmonton rematch?
I would. I mean, how good was it last year?
Yeah.
It's pretty darn good. It went 7, right? And it ended with that scene of while Paul Maurice is hoisting the cup over his head for the first time in 27 years, that, we all saw the behind-the-scenes footage of the devastation in the Oilers' room and how desperate they were from that moment to now to get back. So Barkov, McDavid, yeah, like that matchup, sign me up for that again. As a fan, I would love to see it.
Bob, excellent job. Thanks a lot for spending some time with us here. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
No problem.